Hello, welcome. My name's Doug Gordon. I'm host of the show, Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories. Well, the aim of the show is to interview inspiring people who've either been successful in their field or inspired others to success in some form. Today's guest is Dr. John Demartini. I've had the honor and pleasure of interviewing John many times before, and I have to say he's one of the most loving and wise people I've ever come across. He is the founder of the Demartini Institute and has written over 45 books, which have been translated into 40 different languages. And he's considered worldwide as one of the leading authorities in the area of human behavior and human development. John helps people to be a master of their destiny rather than a victim of their history. He's spoken all over the world on stages in front of thousands of people. And I have to say, I've had the pleasure of sharing the stage with this great man. He really is a true inspiration and a pleasure to have on the show. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you again for having me. It's great to be back.
Thanks, John. And look, I literally went onto your website and there is 257 amazing articles that anyone listening should go on there and have a read. And I've taken most of the questions from there, but also I've interviewed you 6 times before. And I'd love to start with something that I think all of us need to start with in life, and that's creating purpose and understanding what a true meaning in life is. And I know as a kid, you went through a hard teenage time and almost died. And a great man called Paul Bragg said something to you that changed your perception of life and changed your trajectory of your own life as well. I'd love you to tell the audience about that.
It's November 18th, 1972, at a Sunset Recreation Hall in the North Shore of Oahu, Hawaii. I ended up going to a little yoga class, and he was a guest speaker. And as he began to speak, you realize this guy was really a man on a mission, primarily dedicated to healing, natural health, and holistic health. And that night he said that what we think about, what we visualize, what we affirm and talk to ourselves about, how we feel about ourselves, and the actions we take can change the trajectory of our life. And if we take command of it and not let outside influences distract us from something deeply meaningful, we can do something extraordinary with our life. I told him afterwards that I had a dream and saw a vision that night of standing in front of 1 million people speaking. Now, I had a speech impediment. I was dyslexic. I was told I would never read or write or communicate, and was a high school dropout at the time, living in a tent. But he said to me, that's not a problem. I want you to say this one statement to yourself every single day. And he made me say, I am a genius and I apply my wisdom. Now that's the farthest thought that was from my mind at the time. I didn't even know what a genius really was. But he said, if I said that every single day, sooner or later the cells in my body will tingle with it, so will the world. So I started saying that. And almost 2 years later, in November will be 52 years, I've never missed a day. I later realized that a genius is one who listens to their inner voice and follows the inner vision of their most authentic calling and allows that to be stronger. I've said on the movie The Secret, when the voice and the vision on the inside is greater and louder and more profound than opinions on the outside, you begin to master your life. So that statement unquestionably changed the trajectory of my life. And what I've dedicated my life to is what was the thing I actually experienced in vision when I was there with him that night. And I actually have a painting in my office in Houston that describes that night. It's a painting that sits in my office of standing out on a balcony with 1 million people below in a square. And the background is an iconic major building from every major city around the world. And the name of the painting is A Man on a Mission with a Vision and a Message. And it's the vision that I saw of me sharing message around the world. And now I've been in a lot of countries around the world, 160 countries speaking. And I believe that vision has been part of the destiny of my path. It's directed the journey. So yeah, I'm one man. I was doing a TV show many years ago when I came out with a book called You Can Have an Amazing Life in Just 60 Days. And I come out onto the stage, and there's a chair, table, in front of a coffee table and a kind of a couch, and the host. And I come out, and he says, "Now, Dr. Demartini, you're an author and this and that." And he says, "I see you have a new book out. You can have an amazing life in just 60 days." He said, "You don't really expect people to believe that, do you? I mean, most people, they just do the same thing. They have a rut, and, you can't expect them to really change their life. I mean, isn't that kind of like an American hype kind of thing?" And I looked at him, and I got a tear in my eye. And I remembered the moment I met Paul Bragg. And I turned to him and I said, "Sir, it would be impossible to convince me you can't change your life in 60 days. Sir, mine changed in 60 minutes. And I have a dream to share information that I research and gather from greatest sources I can get my hands on that has a capacity to transform people's lives. And I've got millions of people that I've got as reference that it can be done. So you will never convince me it can't be done. But I'm glad you asked that, because I got to share that. And I really believe that the principles that you live your life by can make a difference. If you fill your day with high priority actions that really inspire you, they're deeply meaningful, that are really high on your priority list and high on your value list, you increase the probability of spontaneous action that becomes unstoppable because you're disciplined, reliable, and focused in that area. And if you delegate lower priority things and give yourself permission to free yourself up from anything that devalues you and give opportunities to other people to do what they love doing it, and surround yourself with people that are inspired to do what you want to delegate and allow you to focus on that's really meaning, in my case, teach, research, write, and travel, you can live an inspiring life, amazing life. I've met amazing people. I've met thousands of people that are extraordinarily proficient in mastering their life. And I see a common thread to them, and I try my best to share those basic principles. And I know that you and I have both come across those same principles, and we know they work. And how can we not share it? I feel like I've walked in a field, and there was this massive diamond that I found in the dirt. It's 1,000 carat or something. And it's like, what do I do with it? Do I hide it in a vault somewhere? Do I put it in a museum where everybody can see it? Do I share it? I can't imagine just hoarding it and not sharing the world this massive diamond. That's what I feel like I've been blessed with, is the find of a diamond that's so magnificent that you can't not share it with people. And I think that's what I've been blessed with in life, because I know you can change the trajectory of your life. No doubt in my mind.
I totally agree. And I'm going to add in something there, because you just said something that just exemplify the point, is that you talked about diamonds. And literally yesterday, I was testimonying a book for a new author called Turning Coals into Diamonds. And it just shows you that when you put your energy in one thing, you can bring more into it. And you mentioned about how Paul Bragg said to say something over and over again every single day. And you brought yourself into that because you are a genius and you are coming from a place of love, and you share this wisdom to the world so well, which I absolutely love. And I've seen you present so many times, and I can't get enough of it. And if you haven't seen John present, get on there and have a look, because he's amazing. And you obviously talked about the secret about law of attraction. And I find that so often when I put myself in the energy of something, I create more of it. And I know one of the strap lines that you said, which I have to say I've stolen because it's so good, is that when you think about it and you thank about it, you bring about it. In terms of when you put yourself in the energy of it and be grateful for it, you'll bring more to it as well. One of the topics that you have on your website is the manifestation formula behind the law of attraction. And I know obviously the Secret film is all about that. I know you're a lot about that. Talk a little bit about that as well.
The night I met Paul Bragg, and over the next few weeks, I had the opportunity to spend each morning with him. He shared principles. I took those ideas and I condensed them into a formula, into a 13-step formula. And it basically goes like this. Your purpose is the first step. Identifying what you feel is your mission in life The feeling is your calling in life, the thing that you can't wait to get up in the morning and do, that you can't wait to bring to the world, that makes a difference, that creates a sustainable, fair exchange, that remunerates you for doing some service that you just absolutely love doing. Finding that out, which is an expression of the highest value in each individual, which is unique to each individual. Finding that out and targeting that. If you pursue that and you fill your day with the action steps that fulfill that, you will automatically dominate your thought on it, because your innermost dominant thought becomes your outermost tangible reality. And your innermost dominant thought is an expression of what you value most. So I think about traveling the world and teaching every day. I research every day. I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing, so I just do it. A lot of people think I'm kind of a weird guy because I just keep doing that. You don't need to do it. I'm independently wealthy, but I just love doing it. And so you will automatically think about it. When you think about something that is deeply meaningful, that you feel is your calling and purpose to the world, you will activate the medial prefrontal cortex, and you'll get a vision from the occipital region, the V5, V6 region of the cortex, and you'll see a vision. You won't be able to stop it. It just becomes lucid vision about what you're here to do. And that automatically comes. And I've helped thousands of people awaken to that. And those with a vision flourish, and those without a vision tend to perish. An old biblical principle. And so when you have a clear purpose, you dominate your thought on what that outcome is, and you see it in your mind's eye. Your vitality in life is directly proportional to the vividness of the vision. If the vision is clear, you have incredible vitality. Now, if you can articulate that to a group of people that you want to inspire in a way that they can see the vision with you, they will assist you in the fulfillment of that vision. And so the next step in this formula is to affirm, which means to make firm in one's mind in articulating exactly what it is that you want to create. When you have a clear vision, you can articulate it in such a way that some people can see it. When the painter painted my painting, he was just in a lecture in Melbourne, Australia. I was speaking about 1,400 people, and he was there, and he came up afterwards and he said, "Dr. Demartini, your story was an inspiration. Can I paint that?" And he painted it, and he captured it because I was congruent when I spoke, and it was fluent when I spoke, and he could see the details. When you have it clear in your articulation, you will automatically have what I call the transcendental feelings. You'll be grateful for what you're doing. You'll love what you're doing. You'll be inspired by the vision. You'll be enthusiastically working towards it. You'll be certain about your skills as they develop because you keep doing it. And you'll be present while you do it. And those transcendental feelings are magnets. They magnetize people, places, things, ideas, and events into your life to help you manifest what it is that your innermost dominant thought is. If you then write it down, because when you're inspired, you tend to want to write and capture your inspirations down. If you write it down in space and time and articulate in writing what exactly you want to do, where do you want to do it, when do you want to do it, you increase the probability of synchronicities and filtering out of your thalamus into your cortex information from your environment to help you achieve it. Then if you take high prioritized action and fill your day with the highest priority action, and don't allow yourself distractions from outside sources, say no to things that are distracting and say yes to the things that are inspiring, you automatically raise your energy level. Your energy is infinite once you recognize that source. And once you stay on priority and stick to it and delegate lower priority things, your energy goes up. You start to see resources because your brain and your thalamus filters out information that's based on highest values and deletes the rest and allows you to absorb synchronously information to help you achieve things. And if you go in, then your self-worth goes up when you're walking or talking, doing this. And if you're grateful, because the medial prefrontal cortex and the forebrain is your gratitude center, if you're grateful for whatever comes along the way, because it's all on the way, not in the way, it's impossible not to achieve what it is if you just stay with it. I'm a firm believer in just staying with something long enough until, people identify you by it. So I teach the breakthrough experience. I've taught it 1,209 times. In a couple of days, it'll be 1,210. I'm constantly doing what I really love to do. and I fill my mind and life with that. And as a result of it, I build momentum that becomes sort of unstoppable. You're like a freight train after a while. You can't be stopped easily. And that's the formula. So purpose plus thought plus vision plus affirmation plus feeling plus writing things down in space and time plus taking high prioritized actions with a massive amount of energy on resources, matter, and feeling self-worth elevated and being grateful for the journey will manifest things. It will definitely bring things into reality.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely love that. A couple of things you mentioned there in terms of focus. How does one create that true focus? You actually have 6 strategies on your website to focus the distracted mind. How does one get totally focused?
Well, there's a number of things, and I don't know what's on that particular article because there's many things. I write different articles on that topic. But if you write down everything that's on your mind, just close your eyes, just sit and have a piece of paper in front of you and write down every single thing that's on your mind that's occupying space and time in your mind and write it down. And it's nothing too trivial. Anything that's occupying your mind that you're, ruminating on, just write it down. Next to that, write down, is there anything on that list that you can't do anything about? You can't control. If it is, dump it and be aware of that, because some things you can't control. The next column after the dump column and the distraction column is to write down, who could I delegate this to and how could I get this done without me having to do it all? Because if you're doing everything, there's no way you can be living an inspired life, because you're going to weigh yourself down with desperate activities, lower priority things. You can't be doing the highest priority thing when you're doing 50 things. So who could you delegate that to? And if you're not surrounding yourself with experts that you can delegate to, you're going to hold your life back. I have people that do things. I mean, I haven't driven a car in 34 years. I haven't cooked since I was 24. I don't do cleaning. I don't do domestic things. I don't go shopping. I don't do everything that needs external motivation to remind you to do. I hire people and I delegate it. And people say, well, yeah, that's because you're independently wealthy. You can afford to do it. No, I became independently wealthy because I did it. And that's what people don't get. That's how I became independently wealthy. I freed myself up to do what I'm great at. The number one thing that I can't wait to do, where you can develop an expertise and build, unstoppable momentum doing it and become great at something. As Gary Keller said, if you don't find that one thing to be great at, you're holding yourself back. And mine is the area of teaching in the field of human behavior. That's my area. So my mission was to have the broadest, most in-depth knowledge on that field of any human being that's ever lived on the planet. And so that was my focus. So if I surround myself and delegate those things, I liberate myself. Then the last thing after you do the delegations is, what am I going to do? And it needs to be narrowed down. If you've got a whole pile of list on there, you're overwhelmed. If you're not delegating, you're overwhelmed. So I delegate everything I could possibly do. I jokingly say to my girlfriend, look, my highest skill is not lovemaking. If I was to hire George Clooney or Brad Pitt to make love on my behalf, would you still love me? She said, I'll love you even more. So I have no problem. I delegate. That's a bad joke. But I delegate things. So I'm liberated and my mind is free to be creative and innovative and to be able to spend my time building momentum in the area of my expertise. If I do that, then I put a date on it. When am I going to delegate that? When am I going to do that? Then on the things I want to do, I want to make sure it's only the highest priority things. You don't want to just fill your day with low priority stuff. So if you're not taking the time to prioritize what you're doing and find out what is truly the highest priority thing, I ask people to write every single day, to stop, close their eyes. What is the highest priority action step I can take today that help me fulfill my mission? Bill Gates asked himself a really great question. What is the highest priority action I can do today to serve the greatest number of people in the most efficient, effective manner with the resources that I have available in my awareness? Great question.
Yeah.
But if you're not prioritizing and delegating and making sure you're at the highest priority action, you're going to end up being distracted and overwhelmed and drained and not have the energy. Energy is infinite once you recognize that it comes from a moment of authenticity. Everything and every symptom in your body, every symptom in your psychology, every symptom in your sociology, every symptom in your business is a feedback mechanism to guide you to authenticity and sustainable fair exchange with humanity. If you get that, you want to delegate, hire a specialist, and get on to doing the thing that most serves the people philanthropically. If you do, you get the most reward. You don't, it's not a collectivism and sacrifice altruistic. It's not an individualism where you sacrifice others for you. It's a mutualism where you're doing something you absolutely love doing that makes a difference in the world, that touches people's lives and fills their needs. That's when fulfillment is. If you ask people when the most fulfilling moment in their life is, that's when they're doing that. When they're doing that, they're fulfilled. So that's what I focus on a daily basis. And it liberates energy. And there's no draining of energy when you're doing that. There's no lack of energy.
Yeah, 100%. And as we were saying before the show, I said that this morning, even though having had a minimum amount of sleep, I sprung out of bed with loads of energy because knew I was interviewing someone who I love to speak to and love to spend more time with as well. Now, talking of a few things you said there was about being overwhelmed at times, about prioritization. And I know in terms of prioritization, that sometimes comes aligned to the values that you have within you as a person. And I know you're a massive advocate and also expert in value determination. And in terms of value determination, I'd love you to talk a little bit about that, but I also love you to obviously remember that there are people out there who have wives or husbands or girlfriends or boyfriends that have different values themselves that can sometimes pull them away from their dreams, goals, and wishes of what they want to do. How do we go about optimizing that in order to optimize our performance in our job and our life and those relationships as well?
Great question. Well, your life demonstrates your values. I've been doing value determination since 1978. So that's 46 years, I guess. And yeah, if you ask somebody what their values are, most people will not be able to tell you what they are. Most people will download what they've been taught and what they think it should be based on a collective injected values from mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, conventions, mores, traditions. And so that's not what your values are. Your life demonstrates your values. So first we have to go through and do a little bit more objective view about what's really important to you. Not what you say, because I have had people say integrity and truth and peace and all honesty and all this other stuff, and then their life doesn't demonstrate that. I'm only interested in what your life demonstrates, because your actions speak louder than your words. So how do people fill their space? There's a study called proxemics, things that are very, very important to you in your intimate personal space, you keep close to you. So what do you keep around you? And what do you discard? How do you spend your time? You might find time, make time, spend time on things that are valuable to you. What energizes you? When you're doing something that's high in your values, your energy goes up. When you're doing something others, it goes down. A reticular activating response in the brainstem. What about money? You make money, find money, spend money on things that are valuable to you. You don't seem to get around to be able to get money for things that aren't. You run out of money for it. So if I look at how you fill your space, how you spend your time, what energizes you, and where is your money going, it gives me a pretty good idea of what your values are. Then if I add to that, where are you most ordered and organized? You bring order to the things that are valuable to you. Where are you most disciplined? You're disciplined automatically in the things that are valuable. All of these, in my case, is teaching and researching and writing. I do it every single day. You can count on me to do that. It's prolific. My life demonstrates it. You want to look at what your life demonstrates, not your fantasies. Then I look at what you think about, what you visualize, what you internally dialogue with yourself about most, about how you want your life to be that shows evidence coming true. Then you look at what you keep bringing conversations to in social settings. What do you keep wanting to talk about? And when you get to talk about it, you're engaged. Then I look at what is it that inspires you and brings tears of inspiration, the gamma synchronicities in the brain, the frontal cortex and parietal cortex. What is it that inspires you? I look at what it is that you love learning and what you want to read and study, and also what are the most consistent goals that you have in life that's actually coming true, that you know is important to you, that is actually coming true. If I go through those 13 criteria and look at what maybe the top 3 answers on those questions, it gives me a great idea of what's really important to you, what your life really demonstrates. And it's not always what people say, because they'll say things like, well, I had a woman recently that said, well, my highest value is my children. And I said, well, when you fill your space, 12 hours a day is at work. 3 hours at night is preparing for work. You see your kids about an hour and a half a day. So I'm having a hard time believing that. Well, I do all that work for my kids. No. I said, you wanted to have independence. You didn't want to have to rely on a guy. You also wanted to have kids because you got close to it because your kids are almost when you were 39. So they weren't your highest priority. You would have had kids younger and you would have had a marriage and you would have had somebody to take care of it. So you could be totally with your kids all day long. So be honest about it, because what you think it is and what your life demonstrates, I go by what your life demonstrates. Once we do that, we can then start to prioritize. Once we get into the prioritization, it's about surrounding yourself with people that are really inspiring. And if you're married to somebody that has a completely different set of values, which is almost guaranteed, because if any two people are exactly the same, one's not necessary. You're gonna get somebody you're gonna delegate lower priority things to, and they're gonna want to do things you don't want to do, and vice versa. And so when you do that, you need to ask a really important question, because whatever's highest on your value, your identity revolves around, your teleological purpose revolves around, and the area of expertise and your epistemological areas of ingeniousness is around your highest value. So you want to ask the question about my spouse or my girlfriend or boyfriend. What is the highest priority actions, highest priority values that my partner is demonstrating? What are they committed to? What is it that inspires them? What is most meaningful? What is most fulfilling? What is their life demonstrating they're committed to? What it really is their highest value? Then ask, what is mine? And get really clear on them. Both need to know that. Then you ask one of the greatest questions you'll ever have in relationships. How specifically is my partner being dedicated to that objective that's most important to her, that she's committed to, that's highest on her value, that's most meaningful? How is it helping me fulfill mine? If you can't answer that, I guarantee you're going to try to fix her. You're going to project your values thinking they're better than hers. You're going to keep trying to fix her into something she's not. You're going to be having a fantasy with a fantasy. You're going to have an affair with a fantasy person, and you're going to punish her if she doesn't match it. You're going to reward her if she does, instead of honoring who she is and finding how you're going to get what you want by helping her get what she wants. So you make a link between hers and yours, and you answer that 30 to 80 times. How specifically is what she's committed to and dedicated to helping me fulfill what I'm committed to and dedicated to? And I don't stop until I get tears in my eyes just thinking about how much she contributes. Then I turn that around and go, how specific is what I'm dedicated and committed to helping her fulfill hers? And by filling that out until I get tears in the eyes, I now have a knowledge to be able to articulate and communicate what I want in terms of what she wants. And if we do that, you don't need to fix each other. But if not, you're going to be self-righteously trying to project onto her and trying to get her to live in your values, which is futile. She's going to be trying to get you to live in her values, which is futile. Instead of honoring each other's uniqueness and values and finding out how to blend those and come up with something that's even more profound.
I love that. And there's two questions that come from that. And I think what they're covered actually on your website. And number one is, a lot of people on social media are talking about narcissism all the time. And obviously narcissism comes a little bit down to selfishness and control and everything like that. In my book, I have an acronym for narcissist, which is neglected awareness, reflecting conditions in suppressed self, instigating soul transition. And I ask the question, do you think that sometimes the people that come into our lives are reflecting back areas that we actually need to self-improve on ourselves?
Well, not sometimes. Everyone's a reflection. I don't know about needing to improve, just becoming aware and honor. Because sometimes we don't need to get rid of any part of ourselves to love ourselves. We just need to be aware of how it's serving us that we've been overlooking because we've subordinated to some moral hypocrisy about how we're supposed to be instead of honoring who we are. And if we compare ourselves to a fantasy of how we're supposed to be, we'll never honor and appreciate who we are. So yes, a narcissist, anytime somebody challenges your values, you tend to wake up that narcissistic persona. That's not you. That's just a persona you're wearing temporarily. And somebody supports you and does what you want, you can activate your altruistic persona. That's not you. That's just a persona you're wearing. The real you has got a blend of both. I can be nice as a pussycat and sacrifice for people. I can be mean as a tiger and sacrifice them for me. If I was to go to extremes, I'd be suicidal and homicidal, but I bring it within moderation. But we all have a narcissistic and altruistic persona that we wear at different moments in our life based on our perceptions of our reality. But that's not who we are. We're all we're a synthesis of those two components when we're authentic, where we have sustainable fair exchange. When we're narcissistic, we try to get something for nothing. When we're altruistic, we try to give something for nothing. When we're authentic, we try to have sustainable fair exchange. And that's the key that makes everything work. That's why all of our symptoms in our life are trying to get us back to authenticity and sustainable fair exchange. And sustainable fair exchange works in business, it works economically, it works in relationships, it works socially, it works in health. I mean, the parasympathetic nervous system goes with the altruistic side, then the sympathetic goes with the narcissistic side. If we bring those into perfect balance, we get autonomic regulation and maximum resilience and adaptability. So we're not distressed and we're more inspired by our life. So everything is trying to guide us back to a sustainable fair exchange so we can be equanimous and authentic.
Love that. And that kind of links into, obviously, when there's expectation that doesn't lead to reality, it can cause issues in relationships. And in turn, it can also cause issues in your own relationship, your own self, and in turn can cause depression and sometimes anxiety. One of the things you do talk about is how to overcome depression and anxiety. Can you just tell the audience a little bit about that?
Well, I've had the opportunity to work with people that, being diagnosed, claimed depressed by psychotherapists, psychiatrists, who knows. And many of them fell for the idea of the biochemical imbalance model, which the pharmaceutical companies like to sell because they make fortunes off that. But I found no depressed individual ever has come to my seminar that we couldn't narrow down what were the unrealistic expectations they were comparing their life to. So I found 15 common ones that are most common. If we have an expectation on somebody that's in our life, someone other than ourselves, and expect them to be more nice than mean, more kind than cruel, more positive, negative, more peaceful than wrathful, more giving than taking, more considerate than inconsiderate. Anytime we have this expectation of a one-sided polarity, we have an unrealistic expectation and a fantasy about who they're going to be, because they're not going to be that. See, if I went up to somebody and I said, "You're always nice, you're never mean. You're always kind, you're never cruel. You're always generous, you're never stingy," they'd go, not exactly. And they'd be intuitively thinking of when they're the opposite of that. If I said, "You're always mean, you're never nice, you're always cruel, you're never kind, you're always inconsiderate, never considerate, always wrathful, never peaceful," no, they'd be intuitively thinking about the times when they've been kind and nice. If I said to them, "Sometimes you're nice, sometimes you're mean, sometimes you're kind, sometimes you're cruel, sometimes you're positive, sometimes negative," they immediately go, "That's me." We intuitively know and have certainty when we embrace sides of ourselves. So anytime we have an expectation that somebody we're going to interact with is going to be one-sided and not both-sided, we have a very immature, amygdala-driven, childish perception about how life is going to be. And life is going to smack us and hit us hard to help us break that fantasy. And depression is a comparison of your current reality to a fantasy about how it's supposed to be. Now, if we add on top of that a projection of self-righteousness onto other people, now we expect somebody else to live in our values, not their own. We've got another delusion. They're not going to live in our values. People pray, "Please make my values be fulfilled and make the world like my values." I got to speak at the UNESCO in France to 75 young delegates to the United Nations. And I asked them simple questions, and they didn't know I was setting them up. If you could create a peaceful world, how would it be? Every one of them projected their values onto the world. And if the world would match their values, they thought it would be a peaceful world. They didn't even realize how biased they were. But when people project their values onto other people and expect them to live in their values, they've got another depression coming because they're not going to. And depression is unmet expectations where you're angry and aggressive and you feel blame the person and feel betrayed, and you criticize them and feel challenged. You're despaired and you're depressed, and you're going to exit and escape, and you feel loss of your fantasy, and you're hating them and want to hurt them, right? You're irritable and irrational. And these A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I's of negativity are a byproduct of unrealistic expectations. Now, if we put those two together, you've got the third form of delusion that's leading to depression. And I've taken people that are depressed, and I narrow which ones these are, and I've not seen a depressed patient without one or more of these 15. That's just the top three. Now we go to the next three, and that is when you expect yourself to be always positive, never negative, always nice, never mean, always kind, never cruel, always one-sided. You're not going to be. If somebody supports your values, you can be nice as a pussycat. Somebody challenges your values, you can be mean as a tiger. I'm both. I stopped 40 years ago trying to get rid of half of myself to love myself. I embrace both sides: nice, mean, kind, cruel, positive, negative, all the above. All the above. If you want to love yourself, embrace it all. But people have a delusion they're going to be one-sided. They've been indoctrinated by moral hypocrisies about how you should be from your grandma. Be nice, don't be mean, be kind, don't be cruel. Never going to happen. You're going to be nice and mean, just like grandma is to grandpa. But we have these fantasies, these moral hypocrisies about how we're supposed to be. And they lead to another source of depression. Now we're not angry at others, we're angry at ourselves because we're not living up to the fantasy we're holding. Then we also have an expectation of us to live outside our values. If we don't have a value on wealth building and we keep expecting to be wealthy, we're going to be depressed because we don't have the values that will make us do the actions that will actually lead to that result. So the expectation to live outside our own values is another depressing source. And then we put those two together. Now we got 6 different ways of being depressed relating to other people and ourselves. Now we put those together, and the 7th one is all the above. The 8th one is an unrealistic expectation on collective humanity. Now we expect the world to be at peace without war. But I could show you European borders over the last 1,000 years. There's not one year that doesn't have a war going on. And if you study the Global Peace Index, peace and war are always balanced across the planet based on 23 parameters by the brightest minds in the world. They know that. They know that maximum growth and development occurs at the border of support and challenge and peace and war. You must have those two. But people live in a fantasy. Wounded people that have been raised with conflict or whatever, they search for this little fantasy world out there. So if you expect the world to be one-sided, you're going to be depressed. You're going to think, what's happening to this world? And then you watch television and you think it's not matching your fantasy. What's happening to the world? So that's another one. Then if you go and project your values onto the world and expect the whole world to live in your values, everybody's stupid. If they just follow my values, we'd have a happy world out there. Another delusion. Then the combination of those two. And then we add all those up. Number 10 is all the above. 11 is all the above. Now we go to another one, unrealistic expectations of mechanical objects. People get pissed off at computers, garage door openers, some contraption in the house that's electronic, light systems and switches, ATM machines, and they want to beat the machines. They want to scream at them because they have an unrealistic expectation of them living only one-sided or living in their values or reading their minds. And these all together increase the probability of depression. So when I have a person that's got depression, I say, so if you're depressed, you can't have depression or any feeling without content in your mind. So somehow there's something that's not being lived up to the fantasy or expectation you have. So what exactly is not that you're expecting to happen in life that's not happening? And it's not hard to find it. They can find it. And then they realize, and then I ask them, what's the drawback if it was to occur? And they can't find a drawback. So it's pure fantasy. And then therefore this life sucks because it's compared to a fantasy. And as long as you compare your life to a fantasy about how it's supposed to be, some unrealistic expectation, and those are just 15 common ones, yeah, you're going to have and depression is actually a gift. It's helping you associate pain with fantasies to break the addiction to fantasies, the fantasy of a one-sided world. So I've taken thousands of people, and I mean thousands, who have had depression and dissolved that, help them dissolve it by grounding them and asking the question, if my fantasy was to occur, what would be the drawback? because they never asked that. They just assumed it would be all positive. And then if what's happening, how is it benefiting me? And if I calm down the fantasy and bring up the reality and bring those into equilibrium, they get tears of gratitude and realize there's nothing out of whack in the first place, except their expectations and their perceptions. And that we have control over. We can change our perception, decisions, and actions and change our lives.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Leads in, I've obviously done your breakthrough experience, which anybody who's listening is absolutely fantastic. And you bring in the breakthrough experience the Demartini method, where we look at both sides of the coin. And you basically talked a lot about that as well. But just go into that. And if you can you bring, say, that kind of Demartini method into how you can help maybe with children that might be going through mental health, because that's been on the up recently as well?
Well, we feed the fantasies of children and rob them of accountabilities and responsibilities and dignity and productivity sometimes by over protecting, over supporting, over rescuing children and not giving them accountabilities at a young age and make them resilient. It's your challenges in life that make you resilient and adaptable and make entrepreneurs, not the support. And we go around and we make wussy kids out of sometimes, and they're not prepared for the real world. So part of our psychological issues is the way we've been in an era. When I grew up, if you did something kind of out of line, you kind of got a whip or something, Today, because we're not willing to do that, self-harm's gone up, suicide rates going up, bullies are going up, because the world on the outside is having to do what we're not willing to do as a parent. And in society, we're living in a fantasy of kind, not cruel, and positive, not negative, and peace without war, and it's not true. And so all we've done is pivoted the form in which it's occurring into something that we're now labeling and trying to say zero tolerance of, but all we do is promote the very thing we condemn. Carl Jung warned against this. Whatever you condemn, you breed, attract, to become. Whatever you run away from, you keep running into. Because you're not here to get rid of half of life. You're here to embrace both sides and become resilient. And I learned a long time ago, if you're not pursuing challenges that inspire you, you're going to keep attracting challenges that don't. When you pursue challenges that inspire you, you have eustress and wellness quotient, and your cytokines come into balance. When you're attracting distress, things you don't want, you get inflammatory responses. And that's because you're not willing to go after something that's deeply meaningful that you can tackle in life. You need a challenge in life. You don't grow unless you get challenged. And if you're not tackling challenges, you're doing it. And kids today are being prevented from actually taking on challenges and accountabilities, responsibilities, and things at a young age. My dad made me pay $7.50 a week when I was 9 to live at home. They would be considered abuse today. Man, I get the opportunity to travel on the most magnificent yacht on the planet. I'm financially independent. I'm an entrepreneur and touching millions of people's lives with a real cause in philanthropy today. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for having the courage to not fit into the subordination to the belief systems about rescuing little children all the day. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need to be guiding children and being aware and not be vulnerable to, pedophilic responses and the rough challenges out there, but not overprotect them. Give them accountability. Give them something to do that's meaningful, and their self-worth goes up when they do, and their health goes up, their mental health goes up. If you don't have something that inspires you on a daily basis that you can't wait to do, a sport or an academic pursuit or a music pursuit or something meaningful, you're going to be stuck in your amygdala with addictive behaviors and trying to get immediate gratification, which is going to cost you. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it fills up with low priority distractions that don't. And people, the impulsive, compulsive, immediate gratifying, addictive behaviors that kids get trapped in are compensation for unfulfilled highest values. Find out what your kids' highest values are. Help them pursue something that's deeply meaningful. Challenge them to be accountable to go and accomplish it. Assist them when insistent, but don't overprotect them from reality. And watch what happens. The kids resiliently grow and do amazing things with their life.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And you talk a lot about getting into that inspiration, that thing that you love doing the most, that you spring out of bed every day. And I know I've asked you the question before, because I know you're 69 years of age. I know you were surfing at your 65th birthday. And I know you have this phenomenal energy. And I know it comes a lot because you're so inspired about what you do and you want to wake up every day and spring out and help as many people as possible and inspire them. But what else do you do to get John Demartini into this fantastic energy that you put out to the world that's just full of what I would call of love, lots of vibrant energy?
You know, as I said, if you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it's going to fill up with low priority distractions that don't. I've delegated everything that would normally be anything that requires extrinsic motivation for me to do, anything that I need to be reminded to do, anything that somebody has to push me to do, I hire somebody to do that. And I just fill my day with the things that I absolutely love doing, which is teach, research, write, and travel. 4 things. Now, I also learned a long time ago that you want to prioritize every aspect of your life. You want to prioritize what you eat. Are you eating the highest priority, most meaningful foods that allow form at your peak? So I eat very well. I have multiple juices. I have yogurts and grains and fruits and vegetables and brown rice and fish. I eat a very clean diet. I don't do alcohol. I don't do anything that's high glycemic indexes. I don't just a moderate amount of vegetable juice and water. I drink tons of water. I live with bottled water, and I flood myself with the highest priority, highest nutrient quality food that I can. I feed my mind with inspiring ideas by the leaders in the world. So anybody I took all the ologies that are on the planet. I want to study universal laws. So I took all the logos and all the ologies and disciplines, and I found the founders of each of those disciplines and the most creative and genius minds, the Nobel Prize winners, the great thinkers, the great philosophers, the great originators. And I try to feed my mind with the greatest ideas from the greatest minds on a daily basis. Because if you're filling your mind with creative minds, I just did a gentleman yesterday, as one of the greatest mathematicians in the world. I read his entire biography on his life. I ticked off all the things I found common with me. I went, yeah, I do that, I do that, I do that, I do that. And when I'm doing that, it gives me an inspiration and drive to want to go out and do more with my life. Because this guy was the most powerful published 1,500 documented mathematical treatises published, IQ off the chart. I just lived a completely different life. And so study the minds and fill my mind with incredible information. If I'm going to go to a museum, I want to see the greatest pieces of art. If I want to go for a walk, I want to see the most beautiful landscapes. I want to feed my mind with things that are inspiring, that are awe-inspiring, that wakes up the executive center and wakes up the medial prefrontal cortex and the gamma frequencies that bring tears to your eyes. If you fill your day with that, you're going to be full of energy. And I basically delegate everything else. I don't do things that would be distracting. There's no distracting because I don't need those things. I've delegated those distractions away. And there's energy is infinite once you recognize the source. The source is authenticity, highest priority, and sustainable fair exchange. Those 3 things will make huge difference in people's lives if they start working on that.
I love that. And in terms of energy, obviously you've written over 45 books. Some of them I've read. They're absolutely incredible. What would you say if we were to, offer the audience out some books? What would you say are the top 3 of your books that you could recommend?
I think the Values Factor book is one that everybody can benefit by, because that's really holistic to the 7 areas of your life. It'll help you expand your mental faculties, your business accomplishments, your economic pursuits, your family love and intimacy, your social influence, your physical health and well-being, and your inspiration. It's geared for how do you master those and empower those areas. That's what that book's about. There's another one that just came out that's called Essentials of Emotional Intelligence, on how to self-govern yourself. And I think that would be of use for everybody. The Breakthrough book, even though it's been out for 20-something years, still is a bestseller. I've got it in many, many countries and languages. I think people can benefit from that. There's another one called The Productivity Factor that just came out, and that is how to maximize the productivity in a single day and how to get the most out of each day. because many people allow distractions and opportunists to take up their time instead of having the courage to say thank you, but no thank you, and be diplomatic about it, but say thank you, but no thank you. If you fill your day with high priority actions, it's easy to say no to people that are trying to distract. So productivity factor, maybe I'm working right now on one called Balance the Mind, Heal the Body. That'll be out before the end of the year, but that'll be another one. But those are a few that might be helpful to people.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And obviously, like, I know you've got over 76 different courses. You help people with so many different things. I've been on the breakthrough experience. I've been on lots of other things as well. I have to say, it's absolutely fantastic. How can people find out about what you have coming up? Where do they go, and how can they sign up?
If they just go to my website and look under events, it'll show the live events. Now, some are private, but the ones that are live that people go on, online or in person, they can do that. The breakthrough experience I do both live and in person. I just did one in Chennai, India the other day. I got one coming up in Sydney in a couple of weeks. But I do a lot of them on Zoom. And I like doing both because I like to be on my ship and I like to do it live on Zoom. But I also like to do it live sometimes in various cities when we come sailing in there. And so, yeah, go to the events calendar, just look at what's there. And there's also on the website, as you've probably been under media, if you go to the media section, there are literally thousands of radio, television, podcasts, newspaper, magazines, information, and just start browsing and just start taking advantage of it. Because, and of course, we have a podcast. They can come and watch the podcast every week. So that's something they can do. But I'm an information guy. I research every single day of my life. There's so much. We live in such a magnificent universe. You know, people don't realize it. They go around and we're judging this and judging that. And this is not mainly because they have fantasies about how life's supposed to be. I think we live in a very magnificent universe. There's a real hidden order in the apparent chaos if we know how to ask the right questions. That's why I teach the breakthrough experience. I want people to ask a new set of questions because acquire their lives based on the questions asked. If they ask new questions, it allows them to see the hidden order in the apparent chaos. They can see life on the way, not in the way, and become masters of destiny, not victims of history, and be grateful for their life. I am interested in doing that, and I know that can be done. I've done the breakthrough experience 1,210 times now, and I'm certain I've seen the results. I know it can do, and so I tell people just come, partake, and watch the trajectory change.
Yeah, it is absolutely fantastic. I've done it, and I have to say, it was brilliant. John, we've come to the end of the time, and I just want to say it's been such a pleasure, as always, having you on the show. You're just full of love and wisdom, as you always portray, and I just want to thank you from my heart to your heart for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show again, and it's great to see you. And thank you for your patience through the little glitch we had getting on.
Yeah, for those who are listening, there was storms over around where John is, and it isn't particularly nice here either in Ireland. So we managed to keep the Zoom going, thank God, and I'm very grateful. And John, hopefully see you next time soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks.
My name's Doug Gordon, and you've been listening to Dr. John Demartini on Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories. I'll be back next time with another inspirational guest. In the meantime, if you need to get in touch, please contact me at dougdgordon.com. From all of us here in the team of the show, I wish you a truly inspirational week and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.